Hi Hexada. Should deprecated code marked for removal ever be used? Well, I mean, if you're not planning to use to update your dependencies, or let's say in Java, because I'm developing in Java, you're not using another JDK, you should use them, but you should consider making notes and reminders that if you update the dependencies in JDK, you should update the code as well to remove the deprecated code. Was this an interview? Nine p.m. here. Normal questions. Yeah, I'm normal, but you just came in straightforward with those questions, like, and one after the other. Where are you from? Finland. How is it over there? Did the heat wave reached you? Over here in the UK is scorching and cooking. Nice. Right now I'm just updating. I took a break from my project and I'm updating my description for YouTube and then applying the same thing for Twitch. I feel like it's not informative enough. No, I don't. I'm not native. I'm born in Romania and I'm living in the UK for about 6, 7 years. No, actually 8 years now. It's not you not to forget. You're telling someone not to forget. Have you been in Romania? Just one second. door rang. Only in Sweden, Estonia, and the Czechs. I haven't been in Europe. The only country I've been since I left Romania is here, UK. Never left country, and I regret it. But you never know. It's not too late. I was going to ask you if you're working on something with me. Uh, you're a software developer and do full stack. I'm I can say I'm a beginner as a software developer, but I mostly like backends. So what I'm doing now, it's a backend server, and more specifically, I'm working on an authorization server. I was trying to build an app that I can scale with microservices, and I thought I developed the security level quite good, but I found out that it's not really good. It's not really safe. So I've came back to the security side of things. Well, for the backend, I'm using Java and Spring as a framework. And since I don't have any experience for the front end, I was in a bit of a panic, or I was thinking or considering to um, find someone to do my front end. But I listened to some podcasts and some press conferences from Spring and Java, and someone explained about using time leaf and HTMX to render the front end, but it's rendered in the back end, so nothing needed in the front end. The back end just renders everything. And to do that, you don't really need JavaScript, TypeScript, React. That can be done. Maybe only CSS for styling, but I didn't reach that point. But at some point, I will consider experimenting with HTMX and Timeleaf to see how it goes. No, it's a crappy 2K monitor. I can barely see in it. If it's sunny like it is now, the, the brightness is not bright. And because I'm using a Mac, the scaling is off. But hey, at least I have some real estate. How is your setup? Oh, so you stream as well? What do you stream? Nice, you have quite the setup. Free monitors, rig. I'm impressed. Good, nice. Yeah, I was streaming randomly as well. I started in 2021, streamed for a bit, but mostly I was in uni back then, and mostly I was streaming co-working streams like now. But then I stopped. I didn't have the time on the quite stressing job, so I couldn't find the time or the energy. Now I considered beginning again and being more serious. And I think, as you can see in my schedule, I do like co-working streams Monday to Friday, Saturdays mornings, and in the afternoons, or rather in the evenings. I do some gaming or just chilling around, or mostly gaming, trying some games. been sticking around with the IntelliJ. I was using the community edition for a while, and then because I was in uni, I got like discount codes, and I applied for a discount for the Ultimate edition. And after that, I couldn't go back to the community edition. It has some interesting features in the Ultimate that I can't get used without them. Yeah, the IntelliJ is for mostly for Java, and if you're inclined to develop for Android, it has it's still kind of the same IDE, but with um, Android flavor to it, and it's called Android Studio. I think it's because it has the emulator. What color should I put this chat? This chat here. If I put it black, eh, oh yeah, I forgot about it. I've used a few times, I think twice or three times in uni Eclipse, and it looked like from the Stone Ages, and it was confusing to use. Maybe that was me, and I didn't even use it that much. But IntelliJ looked more modern and streamlined, so I stick with it. Background text. Now chat is not showing. Nice. Oh, I need to. Maybe I should put it white. Just try white. Hey, there you go. I think the chat in white looks more looks fine. Using Notepad. Well, have I wasn't really a fan of using Notepad, to be honest. If I had to create files, I was just using the IDE and then exporting using the IDE to properly export the file in the correct um, txt or conf, as you said. I had a few times I used Notepad, and it doesn't, for some reason. I think it was Notepad, or maybe I'm confusing it with someone else, with something else. Um, the special characters, those were not consistent. If I was using special characters when exporting in a different file, type, it wasn't keeping the same characters. And coming back to the IDE, I kind of like Visual Code because Visual Studio, sorry, because it's like a white, it's like a blank canvas, and you can put into it different plugins. For example, Java, you can put a plugin for Java to recognize the JDK. If you need Docker, you can put that too. IntelliJ has the same thing. IntelliJ has a lot of thousands of plugins, but it seems the program itself, it seems heavy, seems a lot baked into it. Visual Studio seems to be more, it's not so cluttered with stuff. Maybe that's me. Do you, Ixara, do you have an ongoing project now? Or maybe if you want to share what your best project that you're proud of. No, I mean your own. For how long have you been a coder in this industry? I've just I've liked computers before, but more serious into coding. I've started like 7 8 years ago when I moved into the UK. Started uni here, and then I started serious and got my computer science bachelor. Oh, it's your 11 years. And how was it? How was it like finding a job in this industry when you decided, look, I like programming, started learning, and then finding a job? How long did it take you? I didn't like what I found. How I envisioned working as a programmer for a company, how I envisioned it to how I found it in reality was different and disappointing. So I stopped looking for jobs. I said I need to work for myself. Where is that thing? No, I see. Oh, hi, I'm observable. Good evening to you. Yeah, I thought the same. I thought the same about when I decided to move outside Romania. I was living in a city with maybe 300,000 people, but I couldn't find tech jobs. And back then, I thought you need to physically be at a desk in a building. But then, things changed. We had COVID. Everyone worked from home, and now you can live anywhere. You can work from home, remote work. Obviously, you still need. I think most jobs still require you to be in an office, but I think it's more diverse now. Um, I was mostly doing some admin stuff in both my channels on Twitch and YouTube, modifying some stuff, adding some stuff. I was trying to put some banners, but I couldn't find. Not that I couldn't find. I wanted to put something that of my own, not just copied from the internet. That's nice. Where I work, it's like 30 miles from my house to the office, and without a company car, I would have been doomed to use the train, underground, bus. Oh, I was wondering to ask, do you guys have issues when at your workplace you find some problems and you do come up with a solution with, for example, automating a process that you find repetitive and boring? You find a way to automate it, uh, build a pipeline. Is it that difficult for you guys to propose something like this and implement it and ending up implementing it for the company? Because I'm having a nightmare and having it's like torture for me. Seeing the same crappy process, doing it and having to do it manually, it's painful for me. Yeah. I was just wondering if it's just me or maybe it's a common problem. Yeah, I mean, what I was meaning is that is it difficult for you to propose something new or changes? Where are those changes acceptable for, or at least listen to? Yeah, well, you see, exactly. I'm observable. It should be a main responsibility to improve your workflow, because at the end of the day, I'm a resource for that company, and I should be. If I find a way to be a better resource, that's better for them. No. Yeah, that it's difficult to convince them or my own leadership. Yeah, that's normal to happen. Change is difficult. Change is hard. Not everyone is up to accepting change. But when it comes to a process that basic, that, for example, if why would you dig a hole with your hands when you have a shovel? It's a big difference. It's a big improvement. I mean, When the improvement is that huge, why wouldn't you accept it? I was just looking now on my GitHub, and I was wondering if I should. I have basically how many? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. And with this one, I should have 9 repositories. Each of these repository has a microservice. Is it best practice to have a microservice per repository, or have one repository with all the microservices structured in modules? I was debating myself for some time now, how should I structure my project, in modules or separate projects with separate repositories. One approach I find it to be helpful in my own world is by asking questions to the people who will use the changes, and put together a list of the benefits my processes update would provide. A lot of times people just don't understand how much it can help, showing how it can decrease the amount of time they have to invest has a lot of win. Yeah, that's a good way. And I've tried to do that, but whenever I try to show them, I even do um like I was developing pipelines for my workplace in my own on my own time, and just so I can show someone. But when no one is interested in even having the discussion to understand why I think my workflow is not optimal at its best and it can be even better, when I tell them that, they should at least be curious. Why is this person thinking it's slow? Thank you for the follow, Hexada. No, I mean, I didn't even have to ask. I think I asked like 10 times in my 5 years of uh, contract with them, and they just don't want to listen. It says it worked fine till now. It will work fine in the future. That's where the conversation stopped, and it's painful to go back to my desk and use the same old things and hate it. That's the the most thing I hate, that I can improve something and I can't. I'm not allowed. That sounds great. If you mean by being optimal and doing work um fast, that means more work. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes management, if they say you do your work well and fast, that means it's too it's you don't have enough work, and they feel like you need more work. So yeah, in a way, if management sees that, you will end up having more work if you're good at your job and optimal and fast and finding fast processes. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, it is difficult to make people understand what's the value of a programmer, because basically we make things work out of nothing, thin air. We don't need a physical resource to make it into something else. We just put ideas into practice. Starting the services though, I like starting simple and working the more complex system later. There is usually time for refactoring later once people are using what you built. Separating services can benefit scale, but it's been my experience that starting off trying to scale that can be an obstacle. Yeah, in a way, that's what's preventing me in putting things all together, because I think, or maybe even keeping them as they are, separate. I don't know what's best, so I kept them separate. Although although even if I keep my microservices separate from different GitHubs, repositories, when you I experimented with the compose file, and um, when I was pushing the app in a container, I was just using the links from each repository, and when it was deploying in the container, it was just downloading the code from each repository, and it was setting up then the ports and variables and etc. Yeah, might do. Oh, you wanted to do now? I'm observable. Yeah, well, I'm observable has like, how many years did you say? 20 years experience? I don't even have a chance. I barely know what I'm doing. I have to write I have to write explanations of what I'm doing for my future self tomorrow, because tomorrow I won't remember what I did. Spaghetti cone. That's a correct way I would describe my code as well. The dirty little secret. Oh, I found like funny shorts on YouTube with programmers that got employed into companies, opened old code bases and found like funny comments on pieces of code. And comments on comments and comments on comments. Or commenting on a different comment. Having like ending up having like a history of chat in comments. Let's see. I can show you what I was trying to do to this authorization server. Let's do this way. Is it fine if I minimize this? Or what? Blaming me. Let me just. Yeah, so this is what I was. This is like copied and paste. Or not actually copied and paste. It's modified with GitHub Copilot, but more or less is the basic level um, implementation of authorization server from the Spring website documentation. Oh yeah, let me just set that up. One sec. be honest, I never tried this, so I need to find out how to do it. Explore. Why let me show it? Can you hear me? I can. Yeah, the volume is low, but I don't know why. Let me just. I think it's from my speakers. Or I think let me just put my headphones. I was using my speakers. Okay, now I set up my headset.
Oh, I've got a gapper here on this end too, so a lot of times it limits out any of that stuff.
No, it wasn't you. It was my because I was listening through my sound system, and now I'm having my headset.
Okay, cool. Do you have kind of a high level of for this particular project? Um, so I see like a login, what I imagine is a login route,
Yeah.
but I'm
So
not sure of kind of the overall intention of everything.
the intention of this is to allow a user to log in into his account. This authorization server checks if it's logged in. If it's not, it redirects it to the login page. Um, the login page, it will open like a web browser page with the username and password. After that's typed, it will send it to the authorization server, generates a token, which has all its things,
Makes sense.
and it will why I'm using this authorization server from Spring is it uses the client ID, the secret. Let me see where it has it. Let's see. Yeah, it uses the refresh token feature, the client credential, the scope of why
So this is
what
OAuth
this
2 as
token will
well.
do.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, this is what I found out that I didn't had. Previously, I was just generating a plain uh, token with some basic stuff, and it wasn't even encrypted, so it could have been intercepted.
I see. So before you were working more from a, sorry, I'm hearing myself in the background, so I'm going to try to ignore what I'm saying as I'm talking. So in terms of the way that you'd set this up before, it was almost as though your server was talking to another server versus you were giving access to a person who's logging in and letting them approve you. So then you get a token based upon that approval.
Um, well, initially I was giving the user back a token um, with its username and role, permission, and that was everything. And when that user accessed an API link, that API was expecting that token. It was checking that token with my previous authorization server. If it by somehow I was thinking it was decrypting it, but it wasn't encrypted even. So it was reading that token, comparing the data with a database again, and then giving the okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's valid. But I was thinking the approach was not good enough, and it was using a lot of resources back and forth.
I see. Yeah, I think if you want to continue going through this,
So yeah,
sorry, I'm hearing myself
th-
in
this is
in the
the this is,
response, so it's hard to talk.
yeah, I understand. I know how it is. So this is the basic implementation from the Spring website uh, by declaring a server config with all of this way, or I can put it in a application YAML like this, which I commented out.
Hmm. That would make a lot of sense for different environments. So you can have your local environment
Yeah,
with your
yeah.
local host, and then you can have a server
Usually,
environment otherwise.
usually I prefer in a YAML file so I can use variables, and when I do a compose file, I just fill in the variables in the compose.
Hmm.
And then a filter chain to filter out what can be accessed um, publicly, or permitted publicly, or needing an authenticated request.
So this is
This is,
restricting your routes. Okay.
yeah, and this is creating two users in memory database.
Does
So
Spring take
that's
care of setting up all the user credentials in terms of like the structures in your database, or do you have to do that as well?
I have to do that if I'm creating a user
Okay.
for a database. I have to create a model with the, I can show you on that different project how I did it.
I'm not necessarily thinking about the creation of the model as much as I'm thinking about creating the tables themselves.
No, I mean, yeah, it does. I don't need an SQL. I don't need to declare SQL. I don't even have to touch it. It does it itself. As
Oh,
long
okay.
as in the model I declare each like this.
The table name inside of there. Okay.
Yeah, I declare everything here right. It knows how to create it like this.
Makes
It's
sense.
a column.
Yeah, doing decorators. Yep.
Yeah.
That number line 14, I think, is probably the line you're looking for.
Yeah. Which is because it's an entity, a table that it has to put it in table users, and then these are the columns.
Yep, with their
Like in
particular
restrict
types
columns,
and all
yeah.
that, and their validations.
Yeah. The rest Spring does it.
Auto magically. Yep, that's great.
But then when
So
I started using this
have you
approach,
run this so far now?
yeah, so basically in their website they have the authorization server, the resource server, which I did the basic one. And from what I understood from their website, the authorization server is used at the beginning, and then each time the user uses an API, the resource server does the heavy lifting.
Mm.
I think that this one I don't really need.
Some log4j there.
Yeah, I've declared in the application YAML the logging level, so I can see the logs.
Yep.
And I've used Postman.
Oh, so you can't yet use a browser. You have to just use this like an API.
Yeah, and in the test that I've asked ChatGPT to make a test for me for this, or I mean, rather, GitHub Copilot to build a test for me specifically for Postman, and it told me to put like the grand type authorization codes, callback URL. This is what I've declared in the authorization server. Auth URL, access token URL, client ID, in my case is client, the secret is secret, the scope is API read, this user has only read permission. And then when I ask for the access token, it opens the browser, and I should see here the login and password, but I don't. And this is where I'm stuck.
So it's
Basically,
interesting. Scroll down to the bottom for a sec.
yeah.
Now I see it's redirecting back to login, and it's also redirecting to a /error. I'd like to see where that's coming from, like how we've gotten to that. Because that's typically a 302 or a 304, one of the two.
Yeah, it is
That might be what Spring's doing automatically.
it is sending a 302, I believe. Because I was looking into Postman's logs, and it is a 302. Yeah,
Are you
302.
familiar with how to set breakpoints inside of
Yeah,
IntelliJ? Maybe we set a breakpoint right at the line where you're entering the route, like on line 16.
like here.
And then we could try running this, and then we can look at a debug. maybe this is all. Maybe this is something you've been doing. So if it's distracting, just tell me that. But just thoughts out of my head.
No, I haven't. This is what I'm struggling with. So I don't know why it is not
So
allowing
we're
me.
at a breakpoint now. Can you decrease the size of your debugger window? Yeah, perfect.
So we are here.
So it's stopped at that breakpoint. Um, and you haven't made a request yet, right?
That was the request to get new access token.
Got it. Okay.
I've posted the content type it showed me in the body, the grant type, password, username, user, and password. These things.
Did you? Okay, so we want to look at that callback URL too on the server. So let's go back to the debug window and let's see what that request looks like.
If I step
It
step
should be
over
passed
or
along in the body. Let's look at that HTTP. I think we want to look at, oh, that's a security object. I'm not familiar with the object, but we just kind of want to look at the request itself. Can you scroll a little bit further in the code below line 19? Yeah, a little bit further. Go to line 25 and put a breakpoint there. And then click continue within your debugger window. It should be the left. The one that's green
oh
to the
resume.
left of that. Yep. And it'll stop back here. Okay. So we have the same object, but let's dig into this object to see if we can find the request itself. Try scrolling a little bit further down. Hmm. Are there other steps that happen within that security filter chain? I know there's not more code, but are there other things inside there that, like inside your code base, that we can kind of look at that are going to get executed from this?
These two classes are the only ones in this project.
I see. So on line 28, you have a route that says /login/OAuth2/code. Can you show me where specifically in your code base that route has been set up?
It it isn't.
Because I see the one that's /login, but not the full path.
Well, I don't have a control folder
Ah,
with paths. This is the OAuth authorization config basic
okay.
implementation.
I'm not sure how Spring works specifically around this, but what I would say if I were writing this in another language, I would need to set up both a route for /login and I'd have to set up a route for /login/OAuth2/code. And the one's going to actually redirect me to the other based upon completion.
Yeah, I think that will be a
So I
manual.
think that's the thing I'm wondering about with this.
I think that will be a manual implementation. It has an automatic redirect feature, but this is what I'm
So
trying to
where's
wrap
the
my head
server
around.
that's yeah, the server that's localhost 8080? That's the same one that's running here, right? So it's just calling itself?
This is 8080. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're missing a route. That's kind of my take on this. But Spring may be doing part of this for you. I just don't know if it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Have you walked through the OAuth 2 spec to understand kind of like the way the path is followed if we look that up? It'll be you probably want yeah, you got it. It looks like they're trying to use a third party like a GitHub or say a Facebook or a Google or Microsoft as the third party server.
Yeah, my
And then this
approach
becomes
was
a client
to
that allows you to log in through it.
make my own server, not to use a third party one.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
makes
trying
sense.
to learn. I don't think this was the
Hmm.
this wasn't the website.
Can you put in Spring OAuth 2 server implementation?
Oh, this is the website. Getting started.
Ah, okay, and there's a redirect URIs down there. If you search for /login slash, I think they had it like OIDC, which is another type of, no, inside this page specific.
Oh,
If you look, just scroll up a little bit. So where it says login OAuth 2 code, if you just search for something like that, like login OAuth 2 by doing a control F and then typing that in, we can see if there's something further down inside this configuration. Let's just try that login because it looked like it had about 8 matches. You scroll down a little bit. So I see where you put in the the client below. But if we keep scrolling, is there any implementation of a route? You can keep scrolling further if you want. On the top left, there's a how-to guides as well, or protocol endpoints. Let's try protocol endpoints. I don't see anything yet. Oh, there's more below.
yeah, it's a long page.
So this is interesting. If you go back up a little bit, so this device verification endpoint has like a consent page. So a lot of times that you end up putting a consent page in place so that for OAuth 2, you can allow the consumer who's saying I'll approve you to be able to see like what exactly they're approving. And that's what that consent will tell them about. So so this is just more um, there's multiple stages of OAuth. Like the first stage would be I landed at a page that says, "Hey, let me log in," and then I go ahead and put in my right. I say I want to do that, and I go to a page that's going to tell me what I'm approving, like what kind of authorization I'm giving access to. So it may be access to an API that's for user credentials. It may be for like a profile. It may be for other things. An easy way to think about this would be like if you OAuth with Google, you can get access to everything from like Google Drive programmatically. You could get access to Google Gmail. You could get access to a lot of these different services they have available, but you have to allow that user to approve every one of them.
Yeah, and it has like a
There's a
list
lot
with
there.
the tick boxes what you want to approve,
Correct.
or like
Correct. And that's
Google
typically what these
asks. Yeah.
consent pages are. Yep. And then once you approve that, it goes on to the last step, which is um, getting the token. And that's going to say, like, now I have the approval. It's going to send a URL from the server. And then that's going to go back and ask for a token. And that'll be like a short time lived thing. But yeah, why don't we look further down through this? We may find another way of setting up those routes that are going to be required for this. Yep, there's our token endpoint. And again, like once you get that approval, then the server can then go talk to Google directly as you and say, hey, I need to get this token for Constanel. Let's see if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I'm not.
Yeah.
But then like that token will just be for your user. Um, me, I'm Wayne, but like if I approved it, um, then your server would go out and talk to Google and say, for Wayne, give me a token for him. And that's what this token URL is. So this would sit on your server as well. Can you scroll a little bit further down? We can go see if there's another URL. You know what might actually be the most useful case is like as one of the steps to go through with this, I could take a look at this. Um, if you want to send it to me in Discord or something, or put it inside the Twitch chat, I can kind of pull it up. Maybe not in this exact time. I'm completely comfortable with continuing on through here, but I can do a little bit of research afterward too.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't done a lot of research as well. I've just started implementing the basic
Oh, okay.
a basic implementation modified with ChatGPT, to be honest, so I can
Mm-hmm.
have something consistent, not copying different things from
Sure.
different websites and not working, and then see how it worked as it is, and then hitting my head against an air like this and trying to figure out why. That's how I
Yeah.
started, and that's where I am now.
I see. Um,
Because I saw easier
let's
methods to
let's
use
scroll
third
a little bit further
parties.
down this page. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I was thinking maybe I think I should learn how Spring Server security authorization server works, so I can make my own custom one instead of using a third party. Because I was thinking if I'm
There's a
doing
lot
it,
to that, I think.
yeah, it is more complicated, but I was thinking if I want this application to scale and maybe sell it to a company, that company might not want to use Google as a authorization server. They might not want to have Google
Completely
accounts
makes sense.
to use this application in an enterprise.
Yep. A lot of times they'll want you to implement something called SAML, SAML,
Yeah.
which allows you to kind of integrate a lot of things. Yep. Are there any other endpoints below? Oh, go back up one sec. So interestingly enough, this part right here where it says like logout request converter, I I I think there's something to like this stuff. It's definitely not for the right thing. This is talking about the logout, but for your login, there may be these other things like you can add in like a converter or an approver or a provider by setting up like a method name like this. And then that would allow you to have those endpoints. I don't know if that's how it's set up, but it might just be that the way that you create that endpoint within Spring is by calling a method and giving it a what would be a handler.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Go to the bottom one. On the right hand side, it says client registration endpoint. On the top right, where it says authorization endpoint, click on that one. Okay. Yeah, I would really have to read through a lot more of this to be helpful. The other thing you might want to take a look at is like pulling up the how-to guides on the left. There might be something inside there. What's the second one? It's talking about a social login, or even the first one, either one of those two. Okay, if we scroll down some here, so this is talking about adding cores. Okay. That's just giving like a single page app um, access to talk to this API server. If you scroll down a little bit further past this authenticate with client, see where it says redirects to an authorization endpoint? It's number one. Yeah, that part where it says authorization endpoint, can you open that in a new tab? Now, yeah, we keep coming back to something like this. So this isn't what you've added, right? Because I see that
No.
HTTP build there. Because this is one of the steps. If you go back to the page we were previously at, like one of the steps you're going to go through, it says the client initiates an OAuth request via redirect to the authorization endpoint. And this is just saying it's going to hit an endpoint, and you need to have that endpoint running, right? That needs to be an endpoint your server will actually let clients respond to. And that's the part that I think needs to kind of be set up.
think it must have it already. Because I think I was looking through. What's it?
Is there a way of showing all the routes that the server
Yeah,
has?
yeah, it shows the mappings and all the endpoints.
Okay, terrific.
It has a lot. Maybe it's in because it's in debug.
These look like the classes they're all set up within. Yeah. Okay. But the mappings are really what we're thinking about here. And in this case, I don't see that slash login slash OAuth2 slash code. I don't see that listed here. So if your app tries to redirect, I don't know that it's going to get a chance to.
My logic was if whenever I've requested this, and if it wasn't there, it would have showed me that it's not there, not reached, something like that.
I feel like that's what I saw at the end, though. Because if you scroll down, the part that says slash error colon continue, I feel like that could be that the server's like sending you to an error because it doesn't have that URL. It didn't find it. I don't, maybe not. By the way, to have Spring running, do you have to set up Maven first?
Yes.
I mean, I know what Maven kind of does. Okay. Do you have some do you have any other like docs that show just like the setup that you went through to set up your machine? Or did you just kind of install IntelliJ and it had everything for you?
No, but when I created the program, the project, it goes through this step-by-step guide, Java, Maven,
Got it. Okay, so IntelliJ is going to
this,
like set
and
those
then
in there for you.
it will ask you what dependencies you need,
Mm-hmm.
or you can add them manually. How I did it myself. So, for example, this one I added manually. So this is the how I set up
I see.
Maven.
Got it. I was looking to maybe replicate what you've done and see if I can run it on my machine. Which, if it just takes installing IntelliJ, then I can kind of go through that process and then load up your app and try that.
Yeah, I mean it. I didn't set up too much. I think it works on any IDE. It's just that it needs Java 21, and that's it. May and Maven. I think
Okay,
any IDE has that,
cool.
apart from the Java JDK.
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot to maybe go through as it relates to setting up like OAuth 2 and just talk about kind of like the overall OAuth 2 protocol and the steps that need to happen. And then being able to identify how Spring either makes those available or you have to write some kind of code that declares that it should make those available.
Right. So what you said
Yeah, I
previously
don't know if
was
I'm
that
being extremely helpful.
I mean, you are. I mean, you're making me ask more questions that I had before, and I think it's
Okay.
important that I have the right questions to ask to find the right answer. So what you said is that when I request a token, an access token, it calls the login, and I don't have the login.
It seems like you have login, but here's an easy way to test that. So you have you have your server running. I'd like you to go to terminal just for a moment and type in curl space http colon slash slash localhost colon 8080. You put a space after curl? Yeah. And then slash and then say login. And if we go look at the URL, that should actually give us some kind of response. Did it not respond?
No.
Mm. Can you go to
Yeah.
is this a Mac? Yeah, it is a Mac. Can you go to just do you use iTerm 2 by chance?
Yeah.
Let's go to that. Okay. And then let's just try typing in curl from here. You can even copy where it says redirecting to. Let's just copy that. Yeah, you got it.
The
So
same
what's
thing.
that do?
Doesn't open anything.
Try saying curl http colon https colon slash slash google.com. I just want to see what it says. And then put a slash on the end after it. See, that's what I'm expecting. And we're not getting anything. So that gives me the impression that there's no login. There's not a login.
In the
Can you go back to your Postman for a sec? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
in the tutorial that ChatGPT uh, gave me, it made me make a demo client
Mm-hmm.
to to test the authorization server, and this is what it spit out.
Okay.
It, it
Yeah, I think
generated
we're
me a
missing
client,
some
a
parts.
controller.
Uh-huh. I think they're talking about a client as it relates to being a client API server that would then talk um, to an authorization server.
Yeah, yeah. This is what I wanted it to build for me, a client that will communicate with the server to get a token.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the approach I would take at this stage. This is my own 2 cents, but you make your decision on this. I think what I would try to do is make it a lot simpler and just try to make a simple API that can respond to a URL and then kind of go from there. Because I think what I heard you say is you kind of went to Chat GPT, told it to um, tell you some code to write, and then we're trying to figure out like what Chat GPT did, and I'm not sure if it did it the right way. Um,
Yeah, I'm not sure
but I
either.
guess just being able to set up kind of yeah,
It was just like
setting up like an
for
endpoint, I guess would be a good start.
how I understood
Sorry to cut you off.
how I understood this to work is when the client registers, the server needs to have in its database that it communicates with the client ID, the secret, because when the client sends this to the server checks if this is what something it knows, together with the username and
Mhm.
password. And if this is checked,
100%.
then it generates the token.
That's not true. What happens, it depends on the way that you're doing OAuth. Because the client, typically you're not sending a secret. It depends on what this client is. If this client lives, if it lives in a browser, you would never have the secret there and you would go a different path of authorization. If this client lives on the server, if it's another Java app on the server that you maintain and you can restrict, then you can have it call that client secret. But if you gave the client secret out to the browser, then anybody viewing that page could actually see it. And that would be bad because the code would be right there for them to understand. That
Okay.
was kind of what I was mentioning about a different type of OAuth. Like, for instance, this wouldn't be the type of code you would put on a mobile app with like Kotlin or something like that to build an Android app. Because if you did, you'd be allowing anybody that had access to that device to know what that client secret is. And that would be bad, typically.
Yeah, well, it means that I don't really understand how OAuth 2 works in that case. That's the problem. I
Yeah,
just
there's
need
multiple
like in
ways to. That
simpler,
maybe that's
like,
something I could send to you.
yeah, I just need to understand in the basic level how it works, what it needs basically to work from a
Awesome.
client to generate that token.
Okay. I'm going to get a good example of kind of the steps of the way that this would go about, and then maybe it'll give you some idea of like the kind of things that need to be put in place.
Yeah, that'll be perfect.
But I'll do that later on today. Or I guess my later on today, it'll be your night.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not expecting any
Have you
code or
ever looked
something yet,
at
but it's just in like high level
yeah,
uh overview how in basic terms how this works.
I just pasted a link inside the Twitch chat. Have you ever looked at that website?
No.
It'd be a good place to start because that's going to give you kind of the spec, and it's going to be probably a lot of detail to look at. So I'm going to see if I can find something that's going to be more specific to you. But I think it would help you before jumping into this because you'll have a clearer understanding of like, well, like Chat GPT wrote the wrong thing for me, or it did write the right thing, and I still have to figure out where to implement it. Yeah. By the way, I'm also not recommending that you go read the whole RFC because that's like hundreds of pages. It's something you can kind of dig into and look at different parts, but more of like where it defines like what an OAuth access token is and what a refresh token is,
Mm-hmm.
like the OAuth scopes, that kind of stuff. I think that's going to be a good primer. And then that'll give you kind of a little foundation that you can continue on with. I'll see if I can find something that'll give you kind of more of a diagrammed view of like the steps of OAuth. So you can think about like, oh, this is how that happens. Here's an endpoint I have to have here, and then this is
Mm-hmm.
going to go to there.
Yeah, that sounds like something that will help.
Okay, cool. One thing to note, if you look under mobile and other devices, it says native apps, it says browser-based apps, and then device authorization grant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the browser based apps is a really interesting one because it gives you more of a perspective of like what you can make available. Because when you have a browser, you're going to be sending code down to what is like say my browser on my machine, and any of those credentials would be available there. So you have to do a certain kind of path that you don't make like secrets available, because otherwise I can just take that and use it in my application somewhere.
Yeah.
But I'll get you a little bit more detail here. This will be a great place if you have questions. I think this will be a good place for you to dig in if you want to. And there's even, you can look under there's a section called code, and they have stuff for Java, they have stuff for JavaScript. And it's giving you kind of like different providers that you can kind of peek at and understand more. It's even one that talks about like Spring security. That might be the one you're talking about.
I think I
You see what I
glanced over
mentioned?
it. I can't see it.
Oh, um, go to the top. So see where it says mobile and other devices? It's a second heading.
Yeah.
Then right below that, there's browser-based apps. Click on that. And then see here. It's a different looking page. 1 second. You know what? Do this instead.
Or
Go
maybe
up to
in
the
code.
top of the page, code.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
type code. Yeah.
And then click on Java. It's second row, third from the right. From the right. There you go. And then Spring Security is first on the list. It might walk you through some like easier ways of getting something set up, kind of like quick starting a project.
Oh yeah, and they yeah, I remember the website had like a learn page, and it has a section of the screen the a terminal, and the other one the instructions and the IDE, and it like compiles on their
Yeah.
server for learning purposes. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot about these.
Cool. Oh, there's a
Yeah,
demo too.
I'll try these out.
Oh, there's a lot more to it. There's that client. Oh, which section did you click on to get to that?
But
To get to the I didn't find the GitHub. Oh, there's the GitHub link at the top.
I think this one I got into. Yeah.
Okay, I went to a wrong section.
You can paste the link in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. coughing in your ear there.
No, I barely could hear it. The filter is good. Even I don't know if you hear the fan. I have a loud fan near me, like
Not
two
at all.
feet away. What I think they did in this git in this repository, they've put different implementations. That's why a lot of classes.
Yeah, there's so many. Yeah. I'm looking at the one that's under, I went to web, and then at the bottom below this authorized server. Where was it? See if I, oh no, I'm under authorized server. And then I went to source. And then it's under main. And then it's under the authorization. I think maybe yeah. Scroll down a little bit. See if there's folders below. There you go, right at the bottom where it says web, and then click on authorization, or excuse me, authentication. And then I went under the, if you make that a little bit wider, I went to code authentication converter. That's what I was looking at for now. Just trying to get a sense of what these, like a converter means for Spring.
The first one, the client secret. What did you said?
The one that says authorization code authentication converter. I think you're getting a message inside of Twitch.
Hi, the nerdy forest. Yeah, I didn't finish updating everything.
Yeah, I think my next step with this would be to read through some of these examples and get a sense of like how to set up the server endpoint. Even if there's like a from that from that website, if there's an example that you could start from there versus starting with ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think it's best if I start with the learning page and do like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
learning session.
Yep. Excuse me.
Sure, it had somewhere I could code.
As you're developing your first application. Oh, look at that. Right there it is. Right in the middle.
This
So
one?
it says new login URL authentication entry point, and then you give it the path. you tell it like what the media type is, which is like text HTML. Anyway, just getting a sense of where those endpoints are going to be. It's using JWT, I see as well, a little bit further down.
Yeah, I'm missing these.
Yeah, it's almost like that's the kind of stuff that you you had that client, and then that redirect URL is really the thing that like that slash login OAuth2 part. But I think if you put these files in place in the way that they're suggesting them, that you should be able to get something running.
Yeah, I'll try tomorrow to put together a project using only what they have on this website to put a basic project together and just to test the logging. I see they're making a user, they're registering the client in a in-memory database.
Well, this almost seems like the same thing we were looking at that other page before, right?
Yeah, it's similar.
Because it's even mentioning protocol endpoints.
But I don't think that other one was generating the key pairs for the secret. Because I think it needs a private and a public key
Mm-hmm.
to, I think these two keys are to encode and decode the secret. Wouldn't it?
Are you familiar with how public-private key works?
Um, kind of.
Okay, that's something we can kind of chat
I
about
know, I
as
know
well
that
in a separate
the
separate convo.
private key lives in the server. With that private key, you generate the public key. That public key you hand over to
Mm-hmm.
a client to use to decrypt the token.
Yep. And only given the fact that you hold the private key, are you somebody that can say that a public key is valid?
Oh yes, yeah, and that when the server receives the request with the token that has that public key, the server uses the private key to check if the public key is valid.
Yep. And that's part of the reason why you never want any like a secret is not exactly that same thing, but that's why you don't want to give away certain things like your secret because there's certain parts of that crypto pair that you want to keep to yourself. Never
Yeah,
provide that to the client.
and that's another thing. I was always thinking where is the best place to keep those secrets, even in the server, in my server, in a database.
So
Obviously, not in plain text,
no.
but
So there's a couple things. Like when you're first creating locally on your machine, you want to keep that in your drive. You never want to check it in. You don't want to check in your private key ever, say into GitHub or something like that, or GitLab, or
yeah,
but when you actually want to deploy to a server, like say for instance AWS, AWS has a service that allows you to put your public or excuse me your private key out there, and your application can then talk to that service to retrieve it when it needs it, and it keeps it stored in like private away from everything. But you'd
no, I
never put
see.
that in your database because then you'd potentially compromise. Somebody that compromised your database compromises all those things.
Okay,
Same goes with GitHub. You never want that to be out there because even if you restrict your Git repository, you're still leaving the potential for somebody to get access to that key. That's bad.
yeah, yeah.
There's a
In
whole
my
there's a whole like protocol behind like keeping secrets stored in different servers so that it requires multiple access vulnerabilities before somebody can even access stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of detail to it.
Yeah, previously I was avoiding putting secrets in the code, hard coding it. I was using variable placeholders, and in a in a compose file that I was not putting inside the project, it lived outside the project. That's how I was building the project at compile time, and it
Yeah.
was pulling the secret
If it's a
key.
development key,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
and
no worries.
just so
And
I
you can always
can
swap
get
out
used to
private and
how.
public keys.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, you didn't. But I never thought that a service like AWS had that feature that you could keep a secret in a different,
Yeah, it's called
like,
it's called Secrets Manager.
yeah, I never thought of that. I thought it was something unknown to me. I was only I could have think that it had to be a database somewhere. I had to create a database
Check out
specifically for secret keys.
check out your Twitch chat. There's a link to it. Yeah, and behind their secrets manager, they're storing it in some kind of persistable data source. But like this is fundamentally outside of your realm of being able to access the database itself. You have to use the core API library. But this is how an AWS application typically is suggested to keep your secrets stored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Now I know.
And it also allows you to have like different environments. So you can have production, staging, testing, all those different ones, and they can just live in here.
Yeah, learn something new.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for explaining these things to me. Now I know how to build my questions to get to the right answers, and hopefully I'll get to the bottom of this
Awesome.
and have a grasp of how this works. Because right now I'm just
Well, if I
throwing things to the wall and see what sticks.
yeah, I think one of the things that I like the most about development is that I can start as small as possible and then kind of grow things from there. That's kind of what I was bringing up before, right? Try it as simple as possible and add more to it. The and this is not me saying negative about Java at all, but I think Spring and a lot of these frameworks that are very big, they're meant for like enterprise organizations. There's an assumption you understand a lot of other pieces.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people that are just starting off don't. So finding a way to back out of like having to assume you understand a whole domain and just start with like little bits and pieces allows you to get going and get some momentum. And then, it feels good, right? And then you could take on the next thing. But I think it gets to be like the point there is like you assess like how much you know or the things that you don't know, and then you can kind of back off or you can move forward.
Yeah,
What
and
about that?
yeah, it makes sense. You kind of get, and most
One of these
times you get
days, yeah,
scared because it's overwhelming. You see a lot of things. It has a lot of features, and you get overwhelmed. You don't know what you need.
completely. Yeah. And everything in the web is like 7 to 10 layers, right? You started writing Java, but you need to know Java, Spring, MySQL, Maven. We haven't even talked about HTML, CSS, skipping JavaScript. granted, like you don't have to handle those things, but these frameworks are going to be sending that down to a browser potentially. So there's like
Yeah,
so
how the
many
browser
layers you have
stores
to understand.
cookies.
Yeah, sessions, right? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It's all the web's so many layers of things and like it just takes a lot to get there.
Yeah. But
Well, cool.
to what you said,
I'm oh go
yeah,
ahead.
I just wanted to say one more thing to what you said. I if I would have known that I needed to know all these things to get started with programming, I would have even started learning programming. But because I started with only Java, to my novice brain back then, I thought, yeah, that's everything I needed to know. Just follow this course. So I learned Java. But after finishing that, I found out I need to know some of this and that. But that was a good way for these events to happen because it prevented me to now back away from this, if it makes sense.
Completely.
As you
Yes.
said, you learn
I think
one piece after the other.
yeah, and like knowing enough that it gets you excited that you want to do the next thing is really important.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what happened. I won't keep you
It never
anymore.
stops.
Yeah, I won't keep you anymore. I'll be ending the stream soon anyway. But thank you so much. That was a valuable conversation we had. You opened my mind a bit, and you know what to search for a bit more than before we
Sure.
started talking.
That's a really thank you. That's a really nice bit of feedback to hear because while it may not seem like it to you, always knowing if like the message I'm sharing is actually useful is helpful, right? It always
Yeah,
feels good on this side too. So yeah, one of these times in the future, if you want to, we should look at pairing on something. I have an idea of a small project we can kind of pair on that's like a small API, and we can kind of just code together and try it out.
yeah, sure.
But let me know.
Yeah, I'll be down to it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you have a wonderful evening, and I guess it's a great start to your weekend, the end of your
Yeah,
weekend, right? You're at the end of the day. But enjoy your weekend. If you're on, I'll probably be on as well over the next few days. But feel free to hit me up. Uh,
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
talk with you again soon.
yeah. Certainly, we'll do.
Okay. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye. See you later. I'm observable. And see all of you tomorrow. I'll be ending the stream here. Go take a shower and go to sleep, and then tomorrow morning back at it. Bye, the Nerdy Forest.